Hello, and thanks for clicking on to watch Sewers for Saddam. It's another in the series that's putting something on the digital record about consulting engineers Haiste and its achievements. Very few people outside of Iraq will remember Saddam Hussein's predecessor, his cousin Hassan al-Bakr. He was present when the projects covered by this video started. Saddam Hussein was vice president then, but a prominent and powerful figure whose portrait hung alongside al-Bakr's in offices and public places. Al-Bakr's was soon taken down, however, in 1979 when Saddam became president and assumed the dictatorial role for which he is remembered. After Haiste secured its very first job in Iraq, in April 1975 I found myself out there as project engineer for the Ramadi Sewerage scheme, a city then of about 110,000 inhabitants, situated on the mighty river Euphrates, about 100 kilometres to the west of Baghdad. The job was to prepare a preliminary report on sewerage, sewage treatment and surface water drainage for the city, and having got that accepted, moved rapidly on to producing designs and contract documents for its implementation. Soon afterwards we obtained a similar commission for 4 cities to the south of Baghdad: Hillah, Diwaniyah and Samawah on the river Euphrates, and Kut on the river Tigris. And then our first appointments providing construction supervision services, 2 resident contract advisors at the twin cities of Najaf and Kufa, and 1 advisor at Karbala. All of these cities are steeped in history. Hillah is the site of ancient Babylon, of Hanging Gardens fame. What you see here are in effect reproductions, frowned upon by Western archaeological authorities. But it is understandable. In the early 20th century, a German archaeologist arranged for the remains of the original Ishtar Gate to be removed from the site. It was rebuilt inside the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, where it still stands today. I'm one of a privileged few who have seen and walked through both of them. Kut was the site of a tragic episode in World War I. The British Indian Army was surrounded and under siege by Ottoman forces. After the surrender, the survivors were marched to Aleppo in modern Syria, and many more died en route. It's been described as the worst defeat suffered by the British in the whole of World War I. Najaf, Kufa and Karbala are holy cities for Shia Muslims. At Najaf and Kufa, our first resident staff in Iraq were Stuart Ashton and John Falkingham. Here's John now telling us about those early days. And what were your first reactions when you arrived there?
The heat on when the plane doors opened.
Right,
the first thing, not so much the smell, different smell from you would get in the UK, of course. But yeah, that was the very first reaction. Beyond that, the airport, then looking at the street furniture and the buildings, the mosques, all new to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I arrived at the same time that Saddam Hussein took over the presidency. He shared the presidency with his cousin, I think it was, al-Bakr, for a very brief period. Yes. And then al-Bakr retired, yes. It was said for health reasons. I do remember my first trip to the British Club, and I noticed straight away on the wall there was a picture of Queen Elizabeth, which was strategically sited so that above the pictures of al-Bakr, so that they were looking up adoringly at her, which I thought was quite a nice touch. But,
so you were in a hotel in Baghdad originally for a while?
I was in the Abu Nuwas hotel, which is along
yes.
the banks of the river, which was quite a pleasant spot. There were problems in getting a house for us, so I ended up being 2 months in the Abu Nuwas. It was wholly the contractor's responsibility. Right. It was in his contract to find a house for us. He did find one, but there was no furniture there. So I remember procuring the furniture from a joinery company, basically, who showed me British catalogues of furniture and said, would you like one of those or one of these? Or told him what my preferences were, and he made them. Yeah. Settees, chairs, beds, wardrobes.
Yes. So you didn't have any direct powers yourself, and you were there to advise the Iraqi engineer who had the powers.
Yes.
Did you find that to be difficult? How did that work out?
It worked out very well, really. Didn't have any problems as such. I mean, we were reporting to a gentleman called Mr. Sami, who was employed by the SAWAS, for the State Organisation for Water and Sewerage Projects. We had a good relationship with Mr. Sami. He very rarely came to site, but we would go up and see him, and meetings with him probably, well, every day we would see him and report what was going on. Resident engineering name only, really, although of course he had the power to, if the contractors work or anything like that, he would be in touch with them. More often than not, it was the contractor pleading with me to talk to Mr. Sami to give them dispensation. I believe it was Law 157 over there, whereby certain contracts could have limitless supplies of cement, and cement was the main problem, that they couldn't get hold of it. If you were under 157, you could have it. This contract didn't seem to come under that law, and therefore they couldn't get hold of cement, so they were waiting weeks sometimes for cement before they could do anything. So usually, please, Mr. John, could you go and see him? And I mean, I'm not saying he did have some cement, he just didn't have enough cement.
Yeah, tell me a bit about the domestic side of things. What were the other issues to do with just general living and getting around the place and your cars?
I mean, we had a company car. We had to go down, during the 2 months we were in Baghdad, I had to go and collect the car from Kuwait, and then drive back.
Or did you have to get an international driving licence before you went to Iraq, or how did that all work out?
Well, you're allowed to drive on a UK driving licence, right, but you were required to take a driving test.
Right.
And this involved an obstacle course in a small compound. So I cheated a little bit because my car was probably a bit long for that obstacle course. So I borrowed a much smaller car from the contractor to take my test in, and managed to get through. And if you caught one of those cones, you were likely to fail your test. Hence using the smallest possible car.
Yes. How did you find the food and drink?
Because it was an Indian contractor, they had a cook, and I would eat every day with my colleagues from the contractor in their canteen, so that food was generally to a good standard.
Yes.
And of course, of an evening, we would make our own food. We were fortunate that there was a large cement plant being constructed about 5 kilometres from the site.
I remember.
So-called Danish camp.
Yeah,
I befriended some people from there. They had a canteen as well, so occasionally went in there.
So you could have Danish delicacies then?
Well, they were under Law 157, so they could bring anything they wanted, including food and videos and anything you wanted. It was like home from home, really.
In Iraq, unlike in the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, alcohol's freely available.
I discovered that there are 3 state breweries in Iraq. The alcohol was freely available, except in Najaf, which is a holy city. Shia Muslim population in there, Gold Dome Mosque, and within the city limits, you are not supposed to take alcohol.
Right.
Once you got outside the city limits, mind, if you were to pull along the roadside, you would find that the parking areas were littered with beer cans.
Well, has been enmity between Shia and Sunni. Was that something that was came across to you very prominently?
Not in the least.
No,
I didn't see any of that whatsoever. Living in Najaf, I do remember that during the night at one point, Saddam's troops were removing anybody of Iranian origin to the border. That's, I think, that sort of behaviour precipitated the war with Iran that followed in 1980.
Yes. Yeah. John, thank you very much for sharing those recollections with us.
I hope that helps. I hope anybody listening has found it to be interesting.
You might be wondering about the technical stuff. Well, for the most part, it was all rather conventional. The sewers and pumping stations pretty much as you would get anywhere, albeit with local features. Here were a few construction photographs. All of the projects were in the floodplains of the two great rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, so ground conditions could be challenging and construction standards did vary. We did get a bit more adventurous with the treatment plants, however. Until we came along, the very few plants that did exist were either conventional activated sludge plants with primary settlement, anaerobic heated sludge digestion and drying beds, or as at Kufa, to a French design, percolating biofilters instead of aeration tanks. We introduced the authorities to what was generally known in the UK at the time as extended aeration. In modern parlance, and more correctly, they are long sludge age activated sludge plants. It simplified the whole business. It was heavier in power consumption and therefore not generally favoured for large plants, but that mattered less in a country awash with fossil fuel. We were also very conscious that the skills necessary to operate a traditional design of plant were in short supply and would be a real problem in provincial cities. Based in Baghdad, we were driven to the cities for our initial fact-finding in large American cars that were hired by our local partner, Al-Khazam. They didn't have the luxury of air conditioning in those days, so we'd set off in the very early morning hours to get to our city by 9 o'clock or so, and try to get as much done in meetings and looking around the city before the afternoon heat started to become oppressive. The boot of the car contained large ice boxes with cans of cold drinks. At that time in the provinces, Western foreigners were not a common sight. At roadside stops, a few young children would soon appear, selling drinks and cigarettes. I only remember one scary moment. We were returning to Baghdad in the dark, dozing in the back of the car. Unfortunately, our driver, he was awake and managed to avoid a dangerous drop that was there due to inadequate construction work signage. He screamed to a halt a few centimetres from the end of the temporary road. This driver might not have been so fortunate. And almost forgotten, we did have one other project. It was all very hush-hush. It was sewers for Saddam's soldiers at a large army camp at Bakuba, northeast of Baghdad and not far from the border with Iran. Our client was the Ministry of Defence, and none of the drawings were to show anything that might reveal its whereabouts to an enemy. The question arose, what would the project be called? The job number in our office was 8505, and so the Ministry agreed that that was what the job should be called, Project 8505. That's the story of our start in Iraq. In Baghdad, the trunk sewer relining, the master plan and the construction supervision all followed on from those first projects, having earned our spurs as it were. And they'll be the subject of further videos, so keep a lookout. Click on the subscribe button and you'll get notification when they're published. Thanks for watching.